Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Manns, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition Show. As you can see, we are safely doing our 6 feet distance in that opening frame, and we're wearing our masks. This is the October 5th, 2020 edition of the show. It is week 317 and the 260th show that we have done since the closing of the North Adams Regional Hospital. The group's mission statement is, we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but as is our custom, we put the emphasis on Article 23 at the start of the show, and Rachel has asked me to do number 1, so I'm going to accede to her wishes. And number 1, everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work and protection against unemployment.
Number 2, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for herself or himself and her or his family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection.
And in honor of Mike Wilbur, number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of her or his interests. Well, I missed the last show we did, so I'm gonna open the forum to whoever wants it. There's certainly more than enough happening in the current state for us to discuss.
I think the quote that I heard by an economist, I can't remember his name right now, but
Klugman?
no, it wasn't Klugman, though. It was, I saw him in Williamstown, and I think it was Friedman.
Thomas Friedman?
Thomas Friedman.
Yeah.
He was talking on the...
The New York Times writer?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. He is fantastic.
Right, and he said that sometimes a decade goes by and you really don't have any news. But he said this past week was like a decade of news in 1 week, just since last Monday.
I agree.
And I found it frightening. I thought it was a frightening week of news.
If we can try to recap what just happened in the last week.
I know.
There was the revelation that the president's
Taxes were
paid
out.
like $728
50
$750
in taxes and
This past
income
year.
tax.
and 0 most other years.
Yes.
Yep.
That came out. And then what else? There was a debate.
There was a president,
But
what
I-
was called a presidential
I didn't
debate.
watch it. And people asked me if I was going to watch it. I said, no, there's nothing that can be said during that debate that'll change my mind
Well,
and who I'm going to vote for.
I watched parts of it, but it was so disheartening. I mean, it just really made me sick to my stomach.
I mean, I was planning to watch them, but then I received news that a friend of mine had passed away, and I decided that I didn't have the stomach for it, but I did catch clips
Yeah.
of it throughout the week, as all the news shows were covering it, and you couldn't miss what the problem was.
Right. Sometimes I
If I'm
find
good.
it's easier to get the reflection
Yes.
to see what actually
That's why
happened.
I didn't watch the whole thing.
You can watch the news reports and the summaries and listen, and then go back and watch it after, but not to get caught up in the moment of it.
Right.
And I think I've done that with several historical things. I remember with the O.J. Simpson trial, I didn't pay any attention to that at all. And even when the verdict was being run, I remember I was delivering mail and I could just hear the screams coming out of windows when people heard the verdict. But I mean, sometimes we get caught up in the wave of intense news and we don't step back
And
just
separate it.
separate ourselves from it. So then also we had this week the president.
Oh, we forgot Saturday. We didn't start with Saturday in the Rose Garden.
Yeah.
Actually, it
Before the
depends on
debate, yes,
the Rose Garden event in the White House
for the
for the
nominee
For the Supreme Court,
the
yes.
Supreme Court, and all the people sitting in the Rose Garden, most of them without masks, hugging, and then a private reception afterwards, and hugging, and no social distancing, and no masks, and I think about, my goodness, whatever you feel politically, children were there, all those people that were exposed.
Yep.
And now 6 or 7 already, including
Oh,
the
we're up
first
to an
lady.
even dozen now
Huh?
that they're admitting
It's
to.
more, yes.
But anyway, and
For
Wednesday,
the
they both
employees
went.
of the White House, because the president, Hope
Right.
Hicks, it came out, that Hope Hicks on Thursday night, it came
Thursday.
out that Hope Hicks tested
Did
positive.
positive.
And then at 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday, the president admitted that he
He
had
had
tested
tested
positive.
positive.
We still don't know when.
When
He
he
might have been
was.
positive the night of the debate, and he was holding, now it's coming out, you know.
I read an editorial in the Washington Post today. It was just within it. It was just deep within this article. There was a reference to the fact that the president and his entourage showed up late for the debate, and there wasn't time for them to be tested
Yep.
like everybody else
And I
that
think
came in.
Chris Wallace was the one, I mean, he had his hands full. I mean, the whole thing was disastrous.
Oh, yeah, Chris
So-
is
so lacking
livid.
of presidential decorum and protocol. I mean, I just was stunned. I've never seen anything like it. I never thought we would devolve into this horrific place.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
let's say Trump channeled his natural thuggishness during that debate.
It was the
You know,
reaction.
he went to what he knows to do. He wasn't going with the intent of debating or trying to compete with Biden on policies and stuff. His sole intent was to try and get Biden to lose control.
There were,
Just-
there were people that were totally dispirited when I saw people
How
on the
can you
street.
not be?
They would just say, "Did you see that debate?" And I said, "No, I didn't." They said, "Oh, you made a good decision not watching." And then one guy came up to me, one man came up to me, and he said, "You remember the quote from when a home run was hit in a World Series by a Dodger player who could barely walk, and he got up to bat. He was hurt, but they let him go up to bat, and he hit a home run to win the game." And the announcer said, "I can't believe what my eyes just saw." And that was his quote from the debate. Couldn't
Right.
believe
I
what
couldn't
he
either.
saw. That-
I know Biden let go a few times, and I couldn't blame him, but to watch Trump attack his son, and the son in the military, and of course I spent almost 5 years as a military wife and was caught in a war and evacuated, and to see, you know, all I could think of is the suckers and losers and how horrific that is. And to see him, it was, there are not words beyond despicable and unconscionable. I can't find enough words to say how horrific it was.
Well, you know, the day after the debate, Robert Reich
Our friend that we
did
do
a
a lot of-
9-minute video
Yeah.
about the 6 most revealing moments of the presidential debate.
Oh, that's a
And
good
since I did-
segue.
I was wondering, do you think this is
Sure.
a good
Yes.
time to show this? Or
Sure.
Why don't we
I think we have
see
9
what-
minutes.
I think it's always nice to take time and then discuss it.
Okay, here we go then.
Debate was as horrific as we feared it would be.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
He stood up.
No,
He stood up.
the answer to
and
the
he
question is
threatened-
no.
We were barely able to hear a word from Joe Biden or moderator Chris Wallace, thanks to Trump's incessant interruptions and nonstop insults.
We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch.
All
That
right,
ate
gentlemen,
10%.
clearly not true.
Tape
You're
doing it.
You're going to
Not
have
tape.
true, gentlemen.
Here are the most revealing moments from last night's debate. Number one, Trump refused to disavow white supremacy.
What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists
Who
and
would
white
you like me to condemn?
supremacists and white
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
He reiterated his baseless claims that anti-fascist groups and left-wing organizers were the ones causing violence, a narrative contradicted by multiple studies and his own national security officials. The violence Trump claims is the greatest threat facing our country does not exist. The latest draft of the Department of Homeland Security's Threat Assessment Report characterizes white supremacy as the, quote, most persistent and lethal threat to national security. Number two, both Biden and Trump showed us who they really are.
You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe.
One of Biden's most powerful moments was when he talked about his deceased son, Beau.
My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden.
I was struck by Biden's raw humanity in this moment. And how did Trump respond? By interrupting him and launching nonsensical attacks on Biden's other son, Hunter.
Somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, right.
from the
Let's
mayor
talk
of
about-
Moscow.
Let's talk
That
about
is
it.
not true.
Gentlemen,
Gentlemen,
that report is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
Trump revealed the core of who he is, a cruel narcissist who has no feelings for anybody but himself. And Biden revealed who he is, a decent human being who understands the plight of loss at a time when Americans everywhere are losing their loved ones. Number 3, Trump kept dodging questions about his tax returns.
I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
returns.
$38 million one year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax
one year.
returns.
I went, you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it.
For 4 years, Trump has been promising to release his tax returns, but has never followed through. Tonight was no different. He dodged Chris Wallace's questions about the bombshell New York Times report that found he paid only $750 in federal taxes in 2016. And when Biden challenged him to release his tax returns so the American people could see for themselves, Trump said, "You'll see it as soon as it's finished." Hello? It's been 4 years. If Trump wants to refute the New York Times story, all he has to do is voluntarily release his returns. But he refuses to do so, and we know exactly why. Number 4, Trump touted his record on judiciary nominations, but he left out some important details. When asked about their respective records, the bulk of Trump's response was hyperbole and nonsense.
There has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen.
But one aspect he made sure to highlight was his takeover of the courts. He's appointed 202 federal judges so far, and he didn't miss an opportunity to go after Biden either.
And you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that.
Trump turned his takeover of the courts into an attack on Biden and Obama's inability to confirm judges. What Trump failed to mention was that Mitch McConnell refused to confirm any of Obama's judicial nominees, most notably his Supreme Court pick, Merrick Garland. And then, once Trump was elected, McConnell changed the confirmation rules so that the Republican-held Senate could ram through every single one of Trump's picks, as he's now trying to do with Amy Coney Barrett. Number 5, yet again, Trump refused to accept responsibility for our staggering COVID-19 death toll.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault.
Trump compared his response to COVID-19 to the Obama-Biden administration's response to swine flu.
H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
But the 2009 swine flu pandemic killed approximately 12,500 Americans, compared to the more than 200,000 Americans who have died from COVID-19 so far on Trump's watch. Trump also floated yet another insane conspiracy theory, this time claiming
You take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election.
while Trump has said that the virus affects virtually nobody, Biden made a point to empathize with the hundreds of thousands of Americans who have lost loved ones to COVID.
You folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
people?
Far
That is-
more people.
And,
You would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were
his
months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up, he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask.
Number 6, Trump ramped up his conspiracies about voting by mail. He rehashed practically every one of his conspiracy theories about the previous administration, and he doubled down on his lies about mail-in voting.
They're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen.
Here's the truth. The right-wing Heritage Foundation examined a 36-year time frame and found only 1,285 cases of voter fraud involving mail-in ballots out of nearly 2 billion votes cast. That's a rate of, listen to this, 0.000007%. Almost nothing. And Trump himself, along with nearly 24 other senior administration officials, have all voted by mail before. Trump knows he can't win through our normal democratic process, which is why he's sowing distrust about mail-in voting and railing against fraud, so he can lay the groundwork to contest the election and claim it's illegitimate if he loses. Biden's response? Telling people to vote.
His own Homeland Security director, and as well as the FBI director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote.
What we saw last night was not a debate. It wasn't an argument about issues. It was a confrontation between a decent human being and a lying sociopath.
Going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it?
I just think going to COVID-19, I think of the woman, I wish I could remember her name, who said the only pre-existing condition her father had was he believed.
He believed Trump. That was the lady from
and she
Arizona.
lost her father. And
Yeah.
people
We do
most should have
vote.
gotten this in the mail. And also, there's a form to register to vote. And you have until October 24th, that this must be postmarked by Saturday, October 24th, to register to vote. And we want everybody to vote because it's maybe one of the most important things you can do as an American.
Well, it is the most important thing you can do because it's your voice. If you don't vote, politicians generally don't listen because they check the rolls to see who votes. And if they see that you haven't voted in 20 years, they aren't going to, even if you're registered to vote, they're not going to take your word seriously. And in this day and age, since Congress has so abdicated its responsibilities, and the law enforcement agencies didn't feel they could do more than investigate, they left it all up to the people to decide the future of the United States in this election, whether it's going to be Donald Trump or Joe Biden. They left it up to us to decide the direction we're going in.
For me, this election, to me, is about the First Amendment. First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and petition its government for a redress of grievances. It's very basic.
Very bad, yep.
We have a person in the White House who trampled upon the rights of people to peaceably assemble. He sent the army on him, sent tear gas at him.
Lafayette
Disperse-
Park in Washington.
Yeah, that's simple as that. Do you
And
think
then
we
he
have
sent
the right to
unknown
assemble?
people to cities
peaceably?
we're protesting.
See, along with voting, I think that you're right, Rich. The First
Right, you're right,
Amendment is
and
so
he does
important.
That's
not
on the ballot this
And-
time. You cast that ballot, go and vote,
Yeah.
and make sure that your voice is heard.
And the right to dissent is so important.
Important.
And I always say also, vote with every dollar you spend, because where you put your money economically affects how we live our lives. But we have 3 ways to vote. We can vote by mail, we can vote in person, and we can vote on election day at our polling place. If you vote in person, there's also an early voting. And
Correct.
we have early voting in our area.
So you should make a plan to do one of those 3
Yep.
things
Yep.
and figure it out. You know, what's easiest for you? Get a ballot, go down and vote early, or go on election day, but
and
have a
vote.
plan.
So you have to be registered to vote by October 24th. You can vote, obviously, November 3rd. You can vote in North Adams. It's at St. Elizabeth's.
Yes.
That's where
yeah.
everybody votes. And I think, I'm looking, it's,
They still haven't come up with early voting, but if you.
yes, early voting is October 17th to October 30th. I'm looking for
Yep.
that. And
But
that
it's
you
going
can
to
do it-
vary from town to town, because
Yes.
like Clarksburg will only do one day. And it's almost always, I mean, last time they did 2 days, and they put it on a Monday and a Wednesday when the town clerk was in City Hall.
Well, I don't know if this is the same. I mean, this came from the Secretary of State.
Oh,
in
I'm
Galvin.
sure,
It said
and that's
early
why they
voting
tell
is-
you to go to their website to check your town, to see
Okay.
when and how many days of early voting that you have. I just know for the primary, we only had 2 days, and I missed both of them before I ever even got my absentee ballot. They were gone. So
Well,
I'm having the same reaction with this one for early voting.
Well, we could say, for many people, early
For many
voting is
people, yes.
October 17th through October 30th.
Yes.
And check with your city or town
Yeah,
clerk.
so
check
check
with
with
city
your
or town
city or
hall.
town clerk, and they will work online,
Or online,
however. Or
and do
call
that,
city
and-
hall or town hall, and they will give you the particulars for yours, if city or town, if you cannot find
And
out.
besides the presidential election, we have questions on the ballot, correct?
Yes, we do. We have, I guess you handed this to me because I guess I got to be the voting person tonight. We have a question 1.
I believe that's
Is the motor vehicle mechanical data question.
right.
And a yes vote would provide motor vehicle owners and independent repair facilities with expanded access to wirelessly transmitted mechanical data related to their vehicle's maintenance and repair. A no vote would make no change in the law governing access to vehicles' wirelessly transmitted mechanical data.
Right.
2 is an interesting one. That's
Yeah, so-
ranked choice voting, and you have to read about this to understand it.
Oh,
So-
that one is very, yes, I
pushes-
agree, that one's hard, that one's,
What is hard, and I guess I'd say, if you had 5 people running for an office, and if I understand it, somebody doesn't get over 50%. You
Correct.
go to vote, and you vote 1, 2, the first person, second, third,
Third,
fourth.
fourth.
You put 5 people down that you would
can-
vote to, and then they push up to the top.
Correct.
Till one of those 5 people gets the most percentage of votes.
You rank the person you want to vote for in order.
of your preference.
Let's say
Preference.
David, Mike, you, Liz, you, and I are running for office. And so let's just say we put David 1, Mike is 2, you're 3, you're 4, and I'm 5. None of us get 50%. So then they take the one with the lowest number of votes, and that person drops off in those votes, and it pushes up till you come out with a number 1 from all of the people voting. if I've explained that right. So you might want to read a little bit
That-
more
that
about
one
that.
I
It
definitely
seems very
wanna read
complicated.
more.
I think Maine has passed it.
Maine, I think, is the only one who has ranked
And
voting.
it seems to be working.
Right.
It's
The
my
idea being that
understand-
somebody will eventually get a plurality of the votes.
It seems to allow more equity in voting.
Because now your voice counts more than once.
Well, you should, if you don't understand it, you can get one of these books maybe at the
Yes.
library. You should have gotten one in the mail.
Yeah.
If you didn't, and read about it and then make a decision.
Or Google it if you have online, or call City Hall and ask them to explain it, or call the Secretary of
Secretary of
State
State.
and ask them to explain it. So that's the, we
That's
don't-
the only two that I knew of. And I'm not advocating on either one of them because
well,
one, I don't like the no argument. And on the question one, I never like appeals to emotion, which is what that one does.
which one?
The question on the car information,
Are they?
even when I see the ads, I'm like going, ugh.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what concerned me is one of the don't vote for it was polling it. That means that if that one is approved, domestic violence victims, they will be able to get their information, and I just don't know about that at all. I thought it was like, if I go to my service station and
They
he
would
can't
have
get
access to the
they would have access
information
my
to your
stuff.
car.
Hey, I don't mind that. Instead of having to go to the dealer, so it seems like a little more fair to me.
Right,
But-
and that was the intent of it. I don't think U.S. citizens really have that much access to it. I mean, you have other ways of finding out people's home addresses and information.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So
It's very hard.
It's
I
not
can't
hard.
believe what I've been able to find out online.
Yeah. So
Just privacy seems to have gone out the window. Very hard to be private.
no, it's very hard.
Before we close, I just want to make a plug. There was a friend of mine, Marty Greenstein, called me.
Right, for
yeah.
Maynard
And told me that Maynard Cedar on Monday, September 28th, had a commentary, Seeking Truth, with Edward Curtin's new book. So if you get a chance, it's a
Yes.
review of Edward Curtin's new book. And,
Oh, let's bring that up on our next show.
Well,
It would be
yeah.
wonderful to read it.
the whole editorial.
the whole
yeah.
editorial. But
Yes, we will, because that is an excellent article.
and in the article, he just suggests that, rather than getting caught up in the daily things, go out and read some books,
Yep.
But anyways,
And
we're
Maynard is
winding down. We just have to say
Maynard
power
is
to
a
the
friend
people.
of ours, and
Yes, he is.
we love him dearly.
So we're winding down. And,
Power to the people, I
don't
guess
forget
we
to
say.
vote. Vote often and early.
And masks.
With workers' blood, mistakes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud, war's always been the bosses' way, sir. The union forever defending our rights. Down with the black leg, workers unite. With our brothers and our sisters from many far-off lands, there is power in our union. Now I long for the morning that they realise brutality and unjust laws cannot defeat us.